My husband's disgusting best friend said that my daughter was hotter than the girls he'd known as a teen, and he wished she was turning 18 not 16. He was red in the face and embarrassed when I confronted him. We have a pool and we had a large amount of people here this weekend to celebrate my daughter's sweet 16. Of course, most of the guests were teenage girls and boys, but family and friends of mine and my husband's came too. One of these friends was my husband's best friend, Hans 45, and his girlfriend 32. I've never been too extremely fond of him or the age gap between him and his girlfriend. But alas, our children do consider and call him their uncle. Since all my daughter's friends were all having big sweet 16 parties, she wanted one too. And per her request, she was the only one at the party in a red bathing suit so she would stand out. The party was going great until I was in the laundry room grabbing stuff when I overheard Hans talking in the room. Most likely on his phone. He was saying how she was hotter than the girls he'd known as a teen, and he kind of wished she was turning 18 not 16. That any boy who effed her would be doing a service to God and she looked too good in a red bathing suit. I stopped. I wasn't immediately jumping to action, I was confused. This is a man my children grew up with, who babysat them, stayed many nights over at our house, talking about my daughter in a way no one should talk about a child. I marched outside and dragged my husband into the house to the room Hans was in. I'll admit, I yelled and told Hans he wasn't allowed in my house or around any of our family again, especially our daughter, and to leave immediately, before telling my husband anything. Hans got red in the face and cussed at me and my husband for eavesdropping. I screamed at him to tell my husband what he was saying in my house about my daughter. He got even madder before storming out and leaving in his girlfriend's car, without his girlfriend. My husband was getting irritated and demanded to know what happened, so I took a second to calm down before telling him. He told me we would deal with it later and just let our daughter have a great rest of the party. I agreed and we rejoined that party, even though we got a few looks. Hans' girlfriend came up to me towards the end asking why Hans was spamming her phone telling her that I was a bitch, a-hole, basically all the derogatory terms you can think of, even going as far to say I was a WH just like my SLT daughter. I was extremely appalled and dragged her over to my husband who gave me an exasperated look. He told me to let it die for just a bit and he will talk to Hans after the party. That was yesterday afternoon and my husband just recently came home after meeting up with Hans and staying the night. He said I was overreacting, that Hans wasn't even talking about our daughter, that I shouldn't have acted the way I did all day and I was connecting dots that weren't supposed to be connected. I was upset and told him even if it wasn't our daughter he was talking about, he was still talking about a 16-year-old in an inappropriate way. We argued for a long time before eventually, he left again, saying he was going to drive to blow off steam. I have a suspicion he might be out with Hans because I called Hans' girlfriend to tell her everything. She told me he left that morning and hasn't been home since. So today I had a very long talk with my second eldest son and my daughter. I told them what happened, though saved a few details, like the text messages, and simply said that Hans had been saying inappropriate things. I told them that whatever happens going forward, it's not their fault, nor is it my daughter's in any way. It's the pedophilic mind of someone we trusted. I asked them if he, or anyone, had done anything to any of them and if they had, that I wouldn't be angry at them, and would be proud they spoke up. My daughter said he would sometimes get too close and put his arm around her shoulders, but nothing that ever made her alarm bells go off in her head. I reiterated to her that she was not to blame for what happened and it's all on Hans. We hugged. And I held her as she cried for a bit. We talked about more things to do with this type of stuff and I think it ended well. Then around lunchtime, my husband came home and he was sobbing at my feet outside our front door. He told me he was so confused and angry about what happened, that he was convinced his best friend wasn't like that. That he had been drinking last night after he left and fell into a bit of self-hatred. He wasn't with Hans though, but he had been texting with him that night. I asked him why he never stood up for me and my daughter, and why he stayed the night with H. He said I was making a scene at our daughter's birthday party and didn't want to ruin the day for her, and he stayed the night because it was too late anyway by the time he stopped talking with H. I hate this apology though. It felt fake and that he was minimizing my pain and maximizing his. I'm not sure he went silent when he saw S at the house though. I told him that she was staying a few nights. I didn't give him much of an explanation. Later when I started to make dinner he came up behind me and hugged me. I pushed him back and told him that I didn't want any physical touch with him anytime soon. He got angry, telling me that it was over now, that he apologized and promised to stand up for us in the future. I told him that he has to make up for what he did in the past first and that he need to talk with our daughter. He went to go sulk somewhere and I haven't seen much of him since.